As you probably know, Leeds United have held a fairly significant interest in signing Jurgen Strand-Larsen in this transfer window. Jurgen Strand-Larsen being the Wolves striker who hasn't played too much this season, but clearly has a hell of a lot of potential and will be a difference maker for whichever club signs him. He will get better than he is this season, he's just playing in a bad side. However, yesterday showed a hell of a lot of development in this story around Leeds potentially not signing him and things around Crystal Palace. But ever since a lot of people went to bed, this came out at like 11 p.m., there's been a significant amount more that we've learned around the Crystal Palace wanting to sign him kind of deal. So, in this video, I'm going to take a quick deep dive through all of what happened yesterday, what happened today, I suppose, and what will happen going forwards, and ultimately where we are with Strand Larsen, and do we expect something to happen? And I'm just going to get right into it, just to not waste time and piss about. But like and subscribe, yay! So to start with, the bit that we all know, Leeds United made a bid of 30, I believe, 30 plus 9 or 39, or I've heard reports of £40 million to sign Jurgen Strand-Larsen. Strand-Larsen being sort of the main target for this window. Leeds went into it saying, if we can find someone that we think represents good value, then we will do what we can to get them on board. Clearly, Strand-Larsen at that price point, that's going to be an important note later on in the video, clearly represents that. He's a reasonably good deal for a young player that has space to develop, played really, really well last season, and is just in a bad side this year. That was not strictly rejected by, well, that the first was rejected by Wolves, but then it was a case of the door is still open. Someone can make a move here. Let's see what happens. Let's see if we get more sort of bids kind of vibe. It wasn't just a case of, no, Leeds out the door. It was a case of, okay, stay in the waiting room. We'll see what happens, which makes a hell of a lot of sense in my opinion. Since that happened, and this has happened since I last made a video, so it's sort of important and is in the territory of I would like to discuss it, Crystal Palace have upped their bid to £45 million plus an extra 5, which, I will be honest, is a hell of a lot of money. But in their context, it makes sense. He's likely being considered as a replacement for Jean-Philippe Mateta, with interest from various different places in Mateta. However, that's sort of eased off a little bit, but we'll get into why that might be and what that means going forwards in a little bit of time. And in addition to that, they are competing a loan move for Evan Guessond from Aston Villa. Guessond being more of a sort of winger than a straight up number 9, but it looks like they're trying to sort of reinforce those attacking areas, effectively make sure that Glasner is happy enough on his way out, because they know they're not going to have him past the end of the season. But if they're seen as effectively completely sabotaging him, it's going to be very, very hard to get a top tier manager in through the door as his replacement, because you've just sold out the squad from the previous guy. So why would you come and work for the squad that just sold out absolutely everyone? It would make no sense. So it looks like they're trying to reinforce to do something along those lines. And according to a Fabrizio Romano tweet from roughly the middle of the day yesterday, Crystal Palace were waiting for the formal steps for Jurgen Strand-Larsen. However, in the time since, that seems to have changed a little bit. So Alex Crook, who is the head journo at TalkSport, he's the guy that does various bits of research, keeps on track of transfers for them, has said that Jurgen Strand-Larsen to Palace is reportedly off, according to several of his sources, but ultimately that we should see what the next few days bring. So it's not a straight up, it's done, it's finished, it's never going to happen. It's more of a, we're not entirely certain, there doesn't seem to be movement in a positive direction for them. Bit of a weird one. Then you've got Sami Mokbel, who works for the BBC and is one of their major transfer people, saying that the South London club, specifically Crystal Palace obviously, have communicated their intent to walk away from the deal, which says that they are seeing a fairly expensive asset and going, well, do we necessarily need him? They've got Guessond already coming in through the door. They might think, well, if you put Guessond in, you can move Eddie Nketiah to be the pure number 9, then Guessond takes the sort of quasi-10 role that Nketiah has been playing. And they'll be working out things like that and thinking, do we necessarily need to spend 50 million quid? Which, to be fair, probably not. I don't think he's worth that much money. And then you get to Ben Jacobs, who is typically reasonably consistent when it comes to this kind of stuff, and a very, very good sort of journalist kind of guy, who says that Palace are yet to submit their formal bid for Jurgen Strand-Larsen, despite informally agreeing a 45 million plus £5 million fee. The transfer is currently in doubt after Palace agreed a deal for Evan Guessond. This is where things get complicated, because the door has been blown wide open. Because if you consider a few factors, including the fact that Crystal Palace need a replacement for Mateta, one, you need to make sure that Mateta is actually on the way out. And if I have a very quick search and see if there is actual movement on the Mateta front right now, it doesn't look like it. One of the big links was Spurs, and Alistair Gold, who is a reasonably consistent source on Spurs news, says that he understands Spurs are not expected to make a move for Jean-Philippe Mateta, which says that that one is probably off. There was rumour of Juventus potentially looking at a move for Mateta. Juventus haven't really made any noise surrounding it. So Palace won't want to be in a situation where, nice, let's sign in Strand Larsen, but Mateta's still here. And we've also signed Brennan Johnson, and we've also signed Evan Gesson. None of that makes a lot of sense, in my opinion, at the very least, to sort of add up and go, yeah, we'll spend all this money on a player that we're not actually going to use too much. Mateta will leave in the end, but will Strand Larsen be happy with not really playing any football by the end of the season? Absolutely not. Which puts them in a tricky situation, so they're more likely to walk away from the deal. From our perspective, it looks like we are not willing to go beyond that £40 million. That's been reported by several people, including Graham Smith, that £40 million is the line. If we are asked to go beyond £40 million, the answer to that question will be no, because we don't believe he's worth that much. He seems like a long-term project kind of player, and not a player that we would want to necessarily rush into signing, and we wouldn't say, well, we didn't get Strand Larsen, so let's just jump into another one. It's not the kind of player that you're going to make a sort of panic rush replacement signing for unless you see another long-term project kind of guy like Strand Larsen is. Which puts Wolves in a difficult situation as well. Because if Palace have pulled out, and we're the other team with an interest in signing Strand Larsen, and we're not going to go beyond £40 million, then the question is, do we just accept the 40? Do we hope someone else comes in? Or do we wait for the summer? And I think realistically, if they wait for the summer, they lose at least 15 million quid on any Strand Larsen transfer, because that's the reality of getting relegated to the Championship. If they just decide we won't sell him, he'll force a move out in the summer anyway, unless there's a miracle in which they manage to survive the Premier League season, which they won't, or they'll land naturally in the place of selling to Leeds, because we are the only club remaining in the fight. Got to remember, there is always the potential chance that Palace do go for him, and there is eventually a move. But as things stand, a hell of a lot of journalists, a hell of a lot of very, very well-connected journalists, are saying that the move to Crystal Palace is off, and in my opinion that opens the door wide to that £40 million move to Leeds United. I'll be keeping a track on the story over the next few days. I'll be trying to do a video a day over the next few days until the end of the window, because I think it's getting to the kind of important time. But for me, the move isn't dead. It's in a little bit of jeopardy, but I think Strand Larsen to Leeds could still be on if the dominoes fall in the right way. If Mateta stays quiet, I genuinely think we've got a good chance here, but we'll find out how it goes. Let me know what you thought about the video in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, become a channel member if you fancy, who got access to this video like 5 hours early, which would be quite nice. Hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you later. And sorry if you heard baby noises. She's been feeding. Toodaloo.